Alright, I am back with another video, and today we're making a D&D build for tabletop, and, well, this is going to be a video kind of recreating one of my favourite D&D characters I ever played. A nameless slime, like an RPG slime, that ended up becoming a very incredible character to play. Like, the roleplay for this character is so fun, and that's what I care about more on my channel. I really like to do roleplay focused builds and let the mechanics inform the roleplay to really give you guys a fun and unique way to play a character both in and out of combat while still being effective in both aspects. And as such, this character, when I played it, was just so immensely fun and such a joy to play because the way you can flavor and describe things just works out so well. When I played this character in my own campaign, they basically were this kind of like isolated creature who had no personality, no morals, and spoke in a very broken, monotone way, almost in a robotic form, and it was actually up to the party members surrounding this character to basically give them a personality, to even give them a name, to show them morals, good and bad. Like, and considering my party at the time was morally dubious at best, you can imagine how that went. Like, even stuff like the class that I ended up playing was kind of informed by, you know, the other members of the party teaching the character how to fight. Like, the whole point of this character is that you are this blank slate that is a literal mold, a formless mold that is created by, that is formed and meshed and, you know, turned into something by those around them, for better or for worse. Like, basically the only kind of personality trait that this character had was a boundless curiosity and a very much lack of knowledge and social norms and expectations. So if he was curious about something, he would just go and investigate it, like, completely unbehest of what the party's wishes were. So, for example, there was a point where we were on a train, and I wanted to go explore, so I just snuck out under the door because I was amorphous and could slip out under the door. The party didn't even know where I went until it was too late, and I was already at the food car sampling all the different cheeses. To add to a very freaked out bartender who had no clue what I was because I was very unique within the setting. It's stuff like that, right? You're not necessarily gonna be causing trouble for your party all the time, but again, you just allow them to kind of form and mesh you and teach you right from wrong. You'll start out quite chaotic, but then your character and personality will form as you have interactions with other people. And again, it's a character arc. You start to learn more, you start to see people as friends and allies, and eventually, you know, you want to do things for them, you want to protect them, you want to help them. Like, you just become a character as you play, but you don't start as one, if that makes sense. So this character was extremely fun to play. The slime that I played ended up being named Mark, and has a bit of an interesting backstory to it. Now, if you play this character, feel free to change up the backstory however you like, but I feel like knowing my character's version of this backstory could really help inform how you can play this character and the roleplay choices that I made that led into the mechanics-based choices that you're going to see in this build. So, in my version of this character's backstory, the character before they were kind of born, effectively, they were kind of just this blob of slime that had no consciousness, no form, no nothing. They weren't sentient yet. And they actually were on a meteor coming from the astral plane or space or whatever that actually fell to the planet that we were on the material plane. And as such, before it could fully gain its sentience, it was captured by a master wizard who experimented on it as sort of a magical homunculus to try and make more powerful versions of spells that already existed. For example, because of the blobby nature and the amorphous form, he tried to make a more powerful version of Simulacrum that could hold a form, you know, much better, but it didn't really work, etc. And eventually, because none of the experiments really worked the way the wizard was hoping, because in this case, the slime couldn't really cast spells on its own, it was deemed a failure, put into a jar, and just left on a shelf, because this character is quite small. We'll get to that in a minute. And because it was left on a shelf for so long, and it was blipping in and out of consciousness, it would hear conversations that the wizard would be having, and see things around the kind of tower that it was in. So it would learn a very broken version of Common, so that it could at least speak somewhat, and it would also have a little bit of intelligence. It would learn like things about magic and arcane history just by osmosis, quite literally. So it has a basic level of intelligence, despite kind of only just really gaining sentience, which helps inform the roleplay a bit, so you're not just like, you can't do anything at the start. But that's kind of how it got like some of its more basic things, so we can at least communicate, as well as the fact that eventually the jar was stolen from the tower by the party's rogue while on a different job, so that's eventually how I came to meet the rest of the party. So yeah, basically the idea is that you are a creature from space, and we will be linking into that with our mechanics, but you don't know that. You just think you are this failed magical creation, and you have to live with the fact that you are a failure. But again, because this character doesn't even have really a concept of failure, it's not affecting them mentally until they realize actually they were mistreated because they spend time out in the world and learn what people are actually like. So yeah, that's kind of the fun roleplay aspect of it. I think this is going to be an extremely fun build to play both mechanically and roleplay wise, so I really hope you enjoy this video. Let's get into the build. So, our goals for this build are as follows. I've already kind of outlined with the roleplay angle exactly what you're going to be trying to achieve outside of combat, but let's see what we want to do inside of combat as well. We want to make a character who can be extremely effective without using any equipment. This is kind of a restriction of the build that might feel a bit off for some people, but if you want to take full advantage of our amorphous form and really be able to like use it to its fullest extent, we actually don't want to have any armor or weapons. So having a character who is restricted in this way actually feels quite fun, and again, informs more roleplay. So you'll see how we make that work as we go throughout the build. We also want to be a character who has a pretty diverse moveset, learning strategy and moves from all of our party members. So again, when I played this character, I learned how to fight from the monk in our party, I learned how to be sneaky from the rogue in our party, and I learned how to cast Eldritch Blast in quotations from the warlock in our party. Because what I actually did, instead of casting Eldritch Blast, because I couldn't use magic, was that I would charge into someone at Mach speed as a little bullet, because again, we're a tiny blob. I would just dash into people as hard as I could with the charger feat, which was very, very fun. We got to take a level 1 feat, and I chose charger because that seemed like a very fun thing to do. So yeah, basically, you just want to be able to give yourself a pretty diverse moveset to be able to learn things from your party members. So the way we've kind of allocated our stats and used our subclass and such like that is really going to allow us to do these things. So I think you'll find that as quite a fun aspect of the build as well. We want to be fast and nimble, able to access any location. We kind of almost want to play a rogue with this. We want to be quick, you know, being able to move around with our kind of, let's just say, monkish speed, because we're obviously going to be a monk, let's be real. And we also want to be able to kind of use our amorphous form to squeeze into places, slip under doors, through keyholes, and even be able to like scale buildings and such like that. We're going to be kind of roguish, which is going to be really fun. But all in all, we just want to take full advantage of being amorphous. We want to use everything about being able to shift and change our form from this limbless blob into other things to just inform our roleplay and make us a really powerful party member when it comes to combat as well. We're going to take full advantage of the fact that we can literally mold our shape into what we see fit. So, how are we going to do this? Now, in my previous build, I pretty much stuck to just D&D 2024 stuff. Today, we're going to be diving into 2 previous books that obviously your DM will have to okay. First one is the Spelljammer book in which our species comes from, which is Plasmoid, as well as for our subclass, we are going to be diving into Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. If your DM is cool with port forwarding stuff from previous editions, great! You can play this build no problem. Otherwise, might be a bit of a hard sell, especially for a newer DM who might just want to stick to the new rules, so make sure it's okay with your DM if you're allowed to use stuff from previous books first. If not, then unfortunately this build is not going to work for you. But if you do, if you are allowed, oh boy, this is going to be fun. So, our species is going to be a Plasmoid, again from that Spelljammer book. Your creature type is going to be Ooze, and the reason I point this out is because most of the time player characters are humanoids. But if you're on Ooze, you actually technically gain immunity to some spells and effects that only affect humanoids, such as Hold Person, which is kind of cool. That's probably very rarely going to come up, but it is an important distinction to make if you are playing, you know, rules as written, etc., as technically, yeah, you are immune to things like Hold Person, which might make your DM a bit cross at times if they don't realise that, so again, why you gotta make sure everything's cool with your DM before you play this character. Your size can be small or medium. Now when I played this character, I made them as small as the small size category would allow, which was 2 feet. Now obviously that would normally mean you are 2 feet tall, but because we are playing as a blob, it was actually 2 feet of diameter, which just you know, is a fun kind of little gimmick anyway. Allows us to be quite small, bordering on tiny, which is also why we fit in a jar. When we roleplayed it, we might have made it out that he was maybe slightly smaller than 2 feet, just again for the gimmick, but really, you are 2 feet in diameter. But again, you can morph and shift yourself, so size categories are a suggestion in this case. Your speed is 30 feet. So even if you're playing a small, it's still 30 feet. You still get the normal base movement, so there's no disadvantage to playing a small character here. It's just fun flavor. Now, let's talk about the most important feature that we're going to get from our species here, which is amorphous. We can squeeze through any space as narrow as 1 inch wide, provided you are wearing or carrying nothing. Again, hence why we want to be effective without equipment. You also have advantage on ability checks you can make to initiate or escape a grapple. So I would say, because we're actually going to be using unarmed strikes as a main part of this build, the fact that we gain advantage on grapple checks and even get the ability to maybe take the grappler feat or something later, or tavern brawler, is actually really cool. You can really become a potent wrestler grappler type character with this build thanks to this feature. But obviously the main thing that we're here for is being able to squeeze through small gaps, which again can inform our almost roguish nature. We also gain, you know, your standard dark vision, nothing crazy there. We get to hold our breath for an hour, which is quite fun, you know, it just gives you more ways of interacting with the environment. You can, you know, hold your breath underwater, you can hold your breath in space if the campaign ever gets that far. It just gives you more to work with. You can even be smuggled in a box with no holes in for an hour if you need to get into a location, like stuff like that, right? Like, just play around with that one, it can be quite fun. You're also going to get natural resilience. Because we are a slime and ooze, we have resistance to acid and poison damage and advantage on saving throws against being poisoned. Now, I don't think this is too bad personally. A DM might look at seeing that you get 2 resistances just from your species and go, whoa, hey there. But really, acid and poison damage is perfectly fine. Poison can be quite a common damage type when you're fighting a lot of, like, monstrous characters, but acid, not so much. I think in the rare times where it does come up, it's going to be just a nice little bonus to have, rather than something that you're going to be taking full advantage of all the time. Now, another extremely important feature here that kind of informs how we're allowed to use our mechanics roleplay-wise is the Shape Self feature. As an action, you can reshape your body to give yourself a head, 1 or 2 arms, 1 or 2 legs, and makeshift hands and feet, or you can revert to a limbless blob at any time. While you have a human-like shape, you can wear clothing and armor made for a humanoid of your size. So basically what this is just a mechanical way of saying, hey, if you want to use like the standard equipment and weapons, you can, but for our purposes, we're going to be a limbless blob as much as we can. Rather than just changing ourselves into a human when we fight, we're actually going to stay a blob and just make the arms, so that we can still keep our small form figure that allows us to be nimble and like come up with fun strategies, but also still be able to just deck someone by suddenly shooting an arm out of ourselves. Which I think is extremely fun. You just get to go BAM! Like you roll up to this dude, you're just this little slime blob, and the enemy's going to look down at you wondering what the heck you are, and then they're just going to get punched in the face with a sucker punch, because again, they don't see a fist suddenly flying at their face coming. Again, the roleplay aspect of this is extremely fun. But basically, this is just a mechanical way of being able to inform, hey, this is why my character is able to work this way. I'm just creating the arms, and I'm just punching. And again, my DM for this campaign let me retract and, you know, extract the arms at will just for flavor, but technically you do need to use an action to do it. But really, because you're amorphous anyway, it doesn't actually matter if you constantly have your arms out. You can just retract them after combat. But also, that's not actually all that Shape Self does. As a bonus action, you can extrude a pseudopod that is up to 6 inches wide and 10 feet long, or reabsorb it back into your body. As part of the same bonus action, you can use this pseudopod to manipulate an object, open or close a door or container, or pick up or set down a tiny object. The pseudopod contains no sensory organs and can't attack, activate magic items, or lift more than 10 pounds. This is effectively a slightly more restricted version of Mage Hand. We basically get a 10-foot reach Mage Hand that can do some of the things that Mage Hand can do. Mainly it's just if we need to quickly pick up an object from a distance, or open a door from a distance of 10 feet, just where we're maybe less likely to trigger a trap, you know, stuff like that. This is probably not really going to come up too much, but hey, it's still a nice extra feature to have. But yes, that is our species. Obviously an extremely important part of our kit. Like, this is basically just going to inform everything we do for the rest of the campaign, is these features here. Mainly the amorphous and Shape Self, but obviously it just creates so much opportunity for you to do so many fun things. Now, let's talk about our starting stats. As always, when I make these builds, I assume point buy. If you're rolling for stats, great. Just make sure that your dexterity and wisdom are your 2 primary stats. Anyways, with point buy, we're going to actually dump our strength. We don't need it for this build. Almost all the stuff we want to do is actually going to come from our wisdom and our dexterity. In fact, we're actually going to get the ability to make our strength checks and saving throws using our wisdom. So we don't need strength at all in this build. Dexterity is at 16 for obvious reasons. We need this in the early levels to be able to use our unarmed strikes from Monk, as well as it's going to inform our unarmored defense as well, so we do need that dexterity to make this build work in the early levels, even though actually later on, everything we do is going to go off of wisdom, so dexterity is not something we're going to be looking to level up all too quick. We're actually going to be focusing purely on wisdom. Constitution is at 14. I would say if you're able to, you could take the tough feat early on to kind of bump up your HP overall, but you don't really need a high con stat here. I'll talk about that more a bit later. This is just here so that we have a decent amount of HP, but we're more about dodging than tanking. Intelligence is at 12. I like to think that because we were trapped in a wizard's tower for so long and picked up sort of like arcane and historical knowledge from like just, again, seeing what was going on around us, I actually think it makes sense for us to have a bit of an intelligence score here. And we're actually going to be able to play off of this by getting some skill proficiencies later that are really going to make it so that we can really take advantage of that intelligence score. And I just like the idea that we're almost like this, again, this sponge of knowledge that just absorbs things around them and is able to recall it like almost like a computer. So I actually quite like having a 12 in intelligence here, but I would actually say you can dump this down to 10 and put either your dexterity or your wisdom to 17 in order to take half feats later. I would actually maybe recommend that you could maybe take a 17 in wisdom, bumping that up to a 18 later with a half feat, like perhaps telekinetic, or even inspiring leader could be kind of fun. And then bumping it up to a 20 later. Or you could maybe make your dexterity 15, putting your plus whatever you put into that stat into something else, and then you could bump that up with the grappler feat later. Like, you have a bunch of options, so feel free to play around with your stats a little bit here, but just know that we do want to get our wisdom to 20 as quickly as possible, so either start with 16 and take 2 ASIs to do it, or take a half feat and start with 17. Up entirely to you. I'm just going to go with regular stat increases here, just for the simplicity's sake, for people who might want to try this build who are a bit new, so we're just going to go with that, but feel free for those more advanced build makers in the audience to really play around with your starting stats. But yeah, 14 in con, 12 in int, 16 in wisdom. Obviously this is going to inform everything that we do, pretty much all of our attack rolls, strength checks, unarmored defense, everything is going to work off of wisdom. We want this as high as we can get it. And we're actually going to be dumping charisma here with another 8, because, again, we don't exactly have an idea of social anything. We're a terrible liar. We're not exactly very intimidating until we do end up punching someone. More on that later. As well as, we're just not going to be very persuasive because we just don't know how to persuade people, so dumping charisma here does make sense. Let's leave that to the bard in our party, yeah? But we just don't know how to talk to people, so it makes sense to have charisma at 8. Now, for your background, I tried to make this build use as much of the 2024 Player's Handbook as I could. You could technically go into custom background territory, and that would actually make more sense for this build, which I'll discuss kind of towards the end of this section. But for if you're just having to use a background from the 2024 book, go with Wayfarer. Wayfarer is someone who journeys and travels and learns more about the world around them. For us, with our boundless curiosity of new things now that we have our freedom, we absolutely are going to be kind of like this. We're going to be traveling with our party, discovering and learning new things as best we can. So Wayfarer feels like it fits. We're going to be able to increase both our dexterity and wisdom with this background, so we need that, so we definitely want that. We get the lucky feat, which is always good to have. We get our skill proficiencies, that being insight and stealth, which are great to have. Absolutely recommend having those. Insight, you know, again, we're just going to be able to read people really well. I like the idea that we're just able to kind of like scan and analyze people and like notice when they're lying, which even the other members of the party might not be able to do so well. I don't know. I just think that's fun. And obviously stealth. We're going to have some roguish aspects to us, again, being able to slip into places, and if we want to be undetected, we definitely want that stealth. With our dexterity, we're going to do pretty well at that. We do technically get tool proficiency with Thieves' Tools, but obviously we don't really want to use equipment on this build, so I would ask for DM if we're allowed to flavor our tool proficiency with Thieves' Tools as us instead being able to turn our amorphous form into like lock picks on the end of our like blobby fingers and actually pick locks that way. That could be kind of fun, but if your DM's not up for that, then really you're just not really going to be doing this. You'd probably just slip through the keyhole or slip under the door and just unlock it from the other side instead. You know, stuff like that. We also do get to get our equipment here, but honestly, I would just take the 50 GP instead, and give that 50 GP to other members of your party that they can, like, hold on to it for you. Because really, with the backstory that we have, we really shouldn't have any equipment or money at all, so, yeah. However, if you are allowed to do a custom background, I would keep Wayfarer as a base, but I would swap the Lucky Feet for the Tough Feet, just to give us a bit more HP, and I would swap our Insight to maybe Sleight of Hand or something, I don't know, but I quite like having Insight here, so really, it's up to you. The only thing I would probably change would be Lucky to, you know, Tough, but otherwise, Wayfarer is pretty much perfect for us. Now, for our first level, no shenanigans here, we're starting off as a monk. We want to get our monk stuff going as quick as possible. We're going to get our unarmored defense, allowing us to take full advantage of the fact that we're not using any equipment, giving us an armor class equal to 10, plus our dexterity and wisdom modifiers, giving us a pretty damn decent dexterity score right out of the gate. We're also going to get our martial arts die, allowing our martial arts, or our unarmed strikes as they were, to deal 1d6 in place of the normal damage that they would do. This will increase as we get monk levels, eventually increasing to, I believe it's 1d12, which is pretty damn powerful. If not, it's 1d10. I don't have the chart in front of me right now, I'm just reading off a script, so forgive me if I'm wrong about that. I'm still learning 2024, but either way, we're going to get some pretty damn strong punches. Also, thanks to our dexterous attacks feature, we get to use our dex modifier instead of our strength modifier for the attack and damage rolls of those unarmed strikes. But in addition, whenever we use the grapple or shove option of our unarmed strike, we can use our dex modifier instead of strength for the DC as well. And because we gain advantage on those grapple checks thanks to amorphous, again, you're going to be an extremely effective grappler. Even though we are going to be using our wisdom for our unarmed strikes later, I do still think we do need to use our dexterity modifier for grapple checks, so this is still a great feature to have. We also are going to get our bonus unarmed strike, allowing us to just, whenever we want to, we can make an unarmed strike as a bonus action. No need to make an attack as an action first anymore, we just get to attack as a bonus action whenever we fancy, which is great. It gives Monk a lot of fluidity, effectively giving us 2 attacks per turn at level 1 already. That's really, really good considering we're not really using our bonus action for anything else at the moment. So, level 1 for Monk is pretty damn strong. Honestly, Monk's got such a glow up in 2024, it's insane. Now, at level 2, we're going to keep as a monk, making us monk level 2. This is going to give us access to Flurry of Blows, allowing us to expend one of our focus points, which is a limited resource that we have, to make an 2 unarmed strikes as a bonus action instead of just 1. So basically, you can make a single unarmed strike as a bonus action, or spend the focus point to make 2, which is pretty cool. You get Patient Defense, allowing you to take the Disengage action as a bonus action. But if you want to also spend a focus point, you can take both the Disengage and Dodge actions as part of that bonus action instead, meaning that we can be extremely tanky. And I almost like to flavour this as rather than us just dodging everything, which we can absolutely do with our blobby form, just kind of shifting and moving in unnatural ways to dodge attacks, maybe forming around our enemies' attacks in kind of a funny cartoon way, like Bugs Bunny. You can also flavour this as just, you're getting hit with things, but they're not really meant for hitting what is effectively a liquid, and they just don't really damage you. So you can either choose to flavour it as you're really small and dodging in fun and cartoony ways, or you are just tanking everything because, again, you're a blob. You can't really cut a blob so well. So it's up to you how you want to flavour Patient Defense here, but I think it's really fun. Step of the Wind will allow you to take the dash action as a bonus action. Alternatively, you can also choose to spend a focus point to take both the Disengage and dash actions as a bonus action, and your jump distance will be doubled for the turn. This is hilarious because you just get to dash and bounce all over the room like a goddamn pinball, which I think is brilliant. I love how you can just flavour all of these features as just going ding and just hitting someone after you dash at them, which is very, very fun. You're also going to get your unarmored movement here, which allows you to increase your speed by 10 feet while you aren't wearing armor or a shield, so now we have a 40 feet of base movement speed as a small creature. That's very funny. And with your uncanny metabolism, you get to, whenever you roll initiative, you can regain all your expended focus points, so you have way more resource management this time compared to the old monk. Whenever you do so, you get to roll your martial arts die and regain a number of hit points equal to your monk level plus the number rolled. Well, you can only use this feature once per long rest, but that is insane that if you expend a bunch of your resources and you take a bit of damage, you effectively just get to nullify that on your next encounter. That's awesome for if you're in a more of a dungeon crawly campaign. And again, I really like to flavour that as us basically just having a healing factor while being a blob. We just absorb more things into us and regain our form, which I think is kind of fun. Now, we get to move on to level 3, which not only do we get to pick our subclass, but we also get our Deflect Attacks feature. This is an upgrade over the Deflect Missiles feature from 2014, or Baldur's Gate if you know that. The flanked attacks. Whenever an attack roll hits you and its damage includes bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing damage, you can take a reaction to reduce the attack's total damage against you. This reduction equals 1d10 plus your dexterity modifier and monk level. If you reduce the damage to 0, you can expend 1 focus point to redirect some of the attack's force. If you do so, choose a creature you can see within 5 feet of the attack if it was a melee attack, or a creature you can see within 60 feet of yourself that isn't behind total cover if the attack was a ranged attack. My creature must succeed on a dex save or take damage equal to 2 rolls of your martial arts die plus your dexterity modifier. That's effectively a flurry of blows. The damage is the same type dealt by the attack. Wow, what an upgrade over the original feature. That is insane. This makes us even more of a tank, and I just love the idea of us getting our blobby appendage, no, we're not going to say that, our blobby arm out, that's a bit better, wrapping it around our foe's arm as they try to attack us, and then doing a, why are you hitting yourself? Stop hitting yourself, stop hitting yourself, hitting them for 2 attacks of our martial arts die, which is absolutely insane. Again, we just tank, we don't take damage, we are the blob, they cannot damage the blob. But of course, we also do get to choose our subclass at this level, and we are going to get access to the arms of the Astral Self, because we are playing a Way of the Astral Self monk today. This ties into our astral plane origins, where we are technically a creature from space, and maybe at this point we start to be able to tap into more of that power that we are able to harness. You can see little stars and constellations begin to appear within our form as we power up with our arms of the Astral Self. Your mastery of your key, which is the old term, but we'll say focus. The mastery of your focus allows you to summon a portion of your Astral Self. As a bonus action, you can spend 1 focus point to summon your Astral Self arms. When you do so, each creature of your choice you can see within 10 feet of you must make a dex save or take force damage equal to 2 rolls of your martial arts die. Again, that's effectively a flurry of blows. For 10 minutes, while these arms hover near your shoulders or surround your arms, your choice, you can determine the arm's appearance, and they vanish early if you are incapacitated or you die. So effectively, the way we're going to be flavouring this is we're just entering an enhanced state. We're not summoning spectral arms, we're just making our blobby arms that we make with our shape self amorphous feature just better. They are going to be more powerful. I would say that initial explosion of damage you get when you first summon them is just you punching everything near you as you enter this enhanced state of focus and gain more control over your amorphous form for a short period of time. It's just a fun way to basically just get a bunch of different features that are going to really inform the build. So no, we're not summoning spectral arms or having spectral energy surround us. We're just getting better at punching things. Our blobby fists get more powerful, which I think is really, really fun. So, while these arms are present, you gain the following benefits. You can use your wisdom modifier in place of your strength modifier when making strength checks and strength saving throws. That's why we don't need strength. You can also use these spectral arms to make unarmed strikes. That's just a mechanical way of saying, hey, we get to punch with these. When you make an unarmed strike with the arms on your turn, your reach is 5 feet greater than normal. So basically what this means is that we now have 10-foot-long unarmed strikes, which makes me think of like Mr. Fantastic or Luffy from One Piece, as we're just stretching out our arms really fun to punch people and then retracting them, which I absolutely love. Again, this character has so much fun flavor to it. Also, the unarmed strikes you make with your arms can use your wisdom modifier in place of your strength or dex mod for the attack and damage rolls. And their damage type is force. More on that in a second, but basically this just means that we get to pump everything into wisdom and have it do everything, our strength checks and saves and our unarmed strikes, and it affects our unarmored defense. Wisdom is now, we are a completely sad monk, single ability score dependent. We just use wisdom for everything, which is great because wisdom is an amazing stat to have high, because again, those wisdom saves are really, really important. So this is an amazing character already, but we have to talk about that little appendage on the end there, which is our damage type is force. At level 6 of monk, the base level of monk now, we already get that. A lot of stuff from Astral Self was built into base monk when it came to 2024, including the fact that when you reach level 6, instead of just getting that, oh, your unarmed strikes now overcome resistance to, non-magical damage, it just gets turned into force damage, which effectively does the same thing. So we're technically getting a level 6 feature at level 3 here, which is awesome, but of course that means now our level 6 feature is kind of useless. It's not 100% useless, because if you don't have your spectral arms out, you don't gain these benefits, so if for some reason you can't activate them, like if you went through a real slug of a dungeon crawl, and you don't have any resources left at all, then technically, yes, that feature still works, but let's be honest, most campaigns just aren't going to do that to you. So I would actually ask your DM that because we're playing with this Origins from the Astral Plane, we have this kind of space theme going for us, maybe we could harness the power of the stars through the Astral Self instead, changing that force damage to radiant damage instead. That way the level 6 feature still has a reason to exist, allowing us to choose between force or radiant damage for our attacks, but having access to radiant damage could be really, really fun. It gives you a certain niche against undead creatures and such like that, but if your DM's not up for that and wants to just play it rules as written because they're already letting you use stuff from the older books, then just suck it up. You get a level 6 feature a bit early, and the level 6 is just less interesting for us. But if your DM does let you use radiant damage instead, that would actually be kind of a cool feature. But otherwise, you're basically just getting the ability to overcome physical resistances earlier than normal. So yeah, that is level 3, which is incredibly front-loaded, but Monk is just amazing anyway, so, and the arms of the Astral Self just make you even better. You're basically Mr. Fantastic in blob form, just punching and wrapping around things and pinging all over the place. It's very fun. I quite like it. You are basically playing Blob Luffy, in a way. It's just cool. At level 4 of Monk, nothing too crazy here. We're just going to take our first ability score improvement or a feat. Just like I said, depending on how you started this build off with your stats, you could take a half feat here for wisdom or dexterity, entirely up to you. But because I've gone for a more even stat spread, because I wanted to have that 12 in intelligence, we're just going to take a +2 to wisdom here to give us a total of 18, obviously making everything we do a lot better. You're also going to get slow fall at this level. I like to flavor that as just if we hit the ground from a dangerous height, we just spread out our form as we land, like into like a puddle to basically lessen the impact. Nothing too crazy here. Level 4 is just basically you're just getting your ability score improvement, which is nice. But at level 5, we get extra attack, meaning that now we can make 2 attacks instead of 1 whenever we take the attack action on our turn, giving us a total of 4 attacks per turn if we decide to go for Flurry of Blows. So now we're incredibly offensive, incredibly tanky. We have extra range. Everything we do uses our wisdom. We are just a powerhouse. We're also going to get access to Stunning Strike, and I love the 2024 version of Stunning Strike, even if it is technically a nerf, because of the once per turn restriction. But once per turn, when you hit a creature with a monk weapon or unarmed strike, you can expend 1 focus point to attempt a Stunning Strike. The target must make a con save, and on a failed save, the target has the stunned condition until the start of your next turn. But on a successful save, the target's speed is halved until the start of their next turn, and the next attack roll made against the target before then will have advantage. So so it used to be a complete save or suck. If they saved, nothing happened, but now you gain a little bonus even if they do succeed. So even though you're spending the resource, you're always getting something out of it, either giving yourself advantage on another attack or setting up an ally for an alley-oop. It's pretty cool. Also, the failure is just insane. The stunned condition is crazy, because while a creature is stunned, they are incapacitated, meaning that they cannot take actions, bonus actions, or reactions and cannot move. They automatically fail any strength or dex saves, and all attack rolls against them will have advantage. So yeah, out of the 4 attacks we can do, we have a chance to make one of them a very devastating Stunning Strike, which is awesome for this build. I absolutely love it. Now, I could go into each level in detail. I could keep talking about every single class feature that you get at each level, but this build doesn't really need that. I would say by the time you're at level 5 of this build, you've got this character. You've got the basic kit that you need. You're a full martial at this point with extra attack. You have all of the main things that really make this build pop, because, again, the class is so front-loaded, and the subclasses as well. But honestly, I don't need to go into each level detail by detail. I would say that if you end up playing this character to level 20, you want at least 12 levels in Monk. So what I'm going to do now is just go through the key points, the main points of levels 6 to 12 that you need to be focusing on. That will be important to the build, and not just going over every single thing you get. You can go read the book if you want to know every single thing that you get when you play this character. It'll all be on your character sheet anyway. I just want to talk about the main things that you're going to be using to inform your roleplay and your mechanical decisions. So, at level 6 of Monk, you get more stuff from your subclass. This is mainly just flavor stuff, but basically when you summon your spectral arms, you also get to summon kind of a visage of your spectral self, transforming yourself in some way to give you some additional benefits. Basically, it's just going to give you 3 little buffs while you have your spectral hands out. Stuff that's not crazy important, but could inform your roleplay a little bit. First up is Astral Sight. Basically, our amorphous form, like our natural racial ability from being a plasmoid, is going to get a buff here. Our dark vision is going to get upgraded. We can get our normal dark vision like normal, but we also can see in both magical and non-magical darkness to a distance of 120 feet, and we actually see normally now instead of just in shades of grey, which is a nice buff. Again, I like to feel like we're just, like, this is just us entering an even further enhanced state. We're not really changing our visual appearance so much as we are just getting more in tune with our origins, and it's giving us more power. We get Wisdom of the Spirit, allowing us to gain advantage on Wisdom Insight checks, which is nice. That pairs with our Wayfarer skill proficiency, as well as our Charisma Intimidation checks. Obviously, our Intimidation isn't great because we dumped Charisma, but hey, having advantage on those rolls is still a really nice thing to have, so you never know. You may just scare someone when you start punching them. We also get Word of the Spirit. When we speak, we can direct our words to a creature of our choice that we can see within 60 feet, making it so only they can hear us. Basically, a one-way telepathic communication, which is why maybe taking telekinetic could be a fun flavor thing early on. Alternatively, you can also amplify your voice so that all creatures within 600 feet can hear you. Have fun with that one, I guess. But yeah, basically, fun little flavor things at level 6, nothing too crazy. At level 8, you're going to take a +2 to your wisdom to max out your wisdom score to 20, which is great. Basically, level 8, just a fun little extra thing. At level 10, though, this is where your power level really starts to increase. You're going to get your upgraded Flurry of Blows. Now, whenever you use Flurry of Blows, you make 3 unarmed strikes instead of 2, which is insane. We now have 5 attacks per turn. You gain an upgraded version of Patient Defense, allows you to, whenever you use the focus point with Patient Defense, you gain temporary hit points equal to 2 rolls of your martial arts die, just making us incredibly tanky. We're either dodging or just taking damage to our temp HP at this point. We're just tanking absolutely everything, which is awesome. And whenever you expend a focus point to use Step of the Wind, we also get an upgraded version of that. You can choose a willing creature within 5 feet of yourself that is large or smaller, and you can move that creature with you until the end of your turn, and this creature's movement does not provoke opportunity attacks. So effectively, you just get to wrap one of your arms around an ally and just drag them with you at Mach speed, which is hilarious because you're already at dashing speed. So imagine you just like do like what I would like to do a lot in combat when I played this character and do a double dash, gaining like a stupid amount of movement speed and then just dragging someone with them. They're like having to deal with the G-force. That's so funny. I absolutely love that. So yeah. Really amazing features here, but you have to really see how these features interact with what is going to happen now at level 11 with our Astral Self level 11 features, because obviously these interactions were not intended. So, at level 11, you're going to get Deflect Energy from your subclass. When you take Acid, Cold, Fire, Lightning, Force, or Thunder damage, you can use your reaction to deflect it in the same way we use deflect attacks. When you do so, the damage you take is reduced by 1d10 plus your wisdom modifier, with a minimum reduction of 1. So now we can effectively use our deflect attacks on energy. We can't redirect these attacks, but it's still pretty damn powerful to be able to just gain effectively a weird type of resistance to elemental damage. This makes us even more of a tank. But now we have to talk about Empowered Arms. Once on each of your turns, when you hit a target with the arms of the Astral Self, you deal extra damage equal to the target, equal to your martial arts die. So, the first attack we make against anybody is basically going to have double damage. When we make 5 attacks in a turn, like, plus that extra damage on the first attack, our DPS has just skyrocketed. We are now incredibly offensive and incredibly tanky. We're able to dodge things because we're going to have high AC at this point, thanks to our, +5 to our wisdom modifier, and we're just going to have so much extra damage, especially since our martial arts die, I think, is a D10 at this point. Like, jeez, this build just suddenly got very, very strong, and we haven't even multiclassed yet, which I'm talking about in a minute. And then at level 12, you gain another feat. I would say either bump your constitution to 16, or if you were unable to take the tough feat, take it now. You just want a bit more HP if you are going to be tanking. But otherwise, this is basically a free feat slot. Take whatever you like here. So yeah, I would say you definitely want to go to level 12 of Monk if you're in a long-running campaign, to be able to get all of the features I've just discussed. Technically, when you go a bit higher, you actually do get the Deflect Energy feature from the base class of Monk, which is technically a little bit better than our subclass variation. because you can use your deflect energy against any type. So if you want to go to level 13, you could. I would say the max level you want to go to in Monk would probably be 16 at this point, because I don't think the level 17 class feature from Astral Self is that worth it, in my opinion, to go that high. What I feel like we could do more stuff like with a multiclass. I mean, don't get me wrong, the level 17 feature is crazy. You get a +2 bonus to your armor class, as well as you get, whenever you make an extra attack to attack twice, you attack 3 times if all the attacks are made with your astral arms. Like, it's an amazing feature, don't get me wrong, but I feel like there's more stuff you could technically do with a multiclass that I think would actually better inform the roleplay side of things. And again, this is if your campaign is going to go to level 17, which, let's be honest, most don't. So I feel like having the opportunity to basically take a multiclass to more interestingly inform your roleplay and give you a bit more to work with would actually be kind of fun. So I would say we're going to talk about a multiclass option at this point. And I would say the earliest you would take this multiclass would be level 5 if you're going to take it at all. I'm not saying go to Monk 12 and then take this multiclass. I say any time after level 5 you might want to try taking this multiclass at some point. So when I played this character, the idea is that when they finally discovered their astral heritage, as it were, they were going to gain access to a form of spellcasting. I did not know what form of spellcasting that was going to be at the time. Could be bardic, could be warlock, could be just wizard, or it could have been, you know, sorcerer maybe, but of course the stats wouldn't really allow for that. However, we had a druid in the party, which gave my character the idea of having their spells be connected to what's around them, the land, the earth, or in their case, the stars. So let's talk about a stars druid multiclass and how it changes this build in a pretty significant way. So you're going to want to take this multiclass, like I say, no earlier than level 6. I would say you want to at least get level 5 first, because again, once you get past level 5, that's when your features do start to, you know, kind of get mixed together with the base class from your subclass, yada yada yada. So I would say 3 to 4 levels of Druid is really going to help out this build in some fun and unique ways, roleplay-wise. So, let's talk about it. So at Druid level 1, you're going to gain access to your Primal Order feature, and I'm going to say you should pick the Magician variant. We don't really need the armor proficiency that you'd get from the Warrior variant for obvious reasons, so let's go with Magician. This will give us 1 extra cantrip from the Druid spell list, which I will just say is up to your preference, and in addition, your mystical connection to nature gives you a bonus to your intelligence, arcana, or nature checks, the bonus equaling your wisdom modifier, which means now our arcana and nature checks are going to be very, very high with how our stats have worked out so far. For your cantrips, I would recommend the following: Thorn Whip, and Starry Wisp. For your 2 base class ones, your 3rd one that you get from your Primal Order is entirely up to you. Pick your favourite. Thorn Whip is awesome because this means we now get to use our big arms to basically grab someone Mortal Kombat style and say, get over here. So I would rather flavor Thorn Whip rather than us actually summoning a Thorn Whip, is again, us just using our amorphous arm to grab someone, pull them closer, dealing damage in the process. A Starry Wisp is going to be a ranged radiant damage attack for us. We now get to fire little star blasts, because now that we know that we are from the stars, we get to tap into that power and just go pew pew pew, firing little starry wisps, which is kind of fun. For your spells, I would recommend stuff that's really just going to inform your roleplay a bit more. I like to grab Jump and Long Strider here. I just think those are pretty fun to have. Again, increasing our jump distance and increasing our movement speed even more. We are now even faster. We are the little bullet that could. But also, I like the idea of taking the healing spells. The last 2 spells you choose for your prepared spells are up to preference, but grabbing Cure Wounds and Healing Word, because again, you are trying to be a team player here. Your party is giving you your freedom, helped you discover your history of who you are, etc, etc. You want to keep them up to do with a bit of healing, and that is going to synergize with our features that we'll get later. So yeah, the last 2 spells are up to preference, but I do like taking the healing spells here. Now, at Druid level 2, you are going to get access to Wild Shape. Now, we're not really going to use Wild Shape too much in this build. I don't really want to touch on it too much because it's very complicated and it's not really what this build is focused on. However, obviously with Wild Shape, you can flavor your Wild Shape as you, again, just shifting your form. You're not turning into animals, you're just using your amorphous form to create blobby, slimy versions of animals that exist, and as such get to take on some of their traits. Which can be really fun. You know, you could technically make yourself even smaller by transforming into things that are smaller than 2 feet, so that will allow you to slip in even further, or you can turn into bigger things and just take advantage of their abilities. It's a shame that we don't get to, like, spread wings and get a flying speed until Druid level 8, if you decide to go that far, which I probably wouldn't. But it could just be a fun little flavor thing that might have some niche uses if they come up. But obviously, we're not getting too much from this level here. What we do get, though, is the Stars Druid subclass at level 3, which just does so much to make this, the roleplay, so much more fun. Let me explain why. Now that we have fully understood how we can spellcast to really stick it in the face of the wizard who captured us to show us that we are not a failure, we are who we are, now we get to fully show that through a transformation. First off, though, we're going to get our star chart. And this is where things get a bit iffy. You've created a star chart that is part of your heavenly studies. It is a tiny object that you can make as a spell that you can use as a spellcasting focus for your druid spells. You determine its form by rolling on the star map table or by choosing one. So basically, you get to choose this star map of yours. Now, obviously, rules as written, it has to be a tiny object that you would have on your person, and of course, we can't have any equipment if we want to take full advantage of our amorphous form. However, if your DM is cool with it, I would say that we ourselves are the star chart. We have constellations visible inside of our slimy form that we use to inform our power of our astral self and what will be our star druid abilities. Most DMs, I think, would be cool with this, just saying, I am the star chart because of what I am is kind of fun. But if you do have to carry a small little tiny object, basically just have an arcane core inside of yourself that you just plop out when you need to do amorphous things and just have someone hang on to it. Like, it's a bit of gaff, but it's not enough gaff that we can't play around it. But I don't think such DMs are going to be a stickler that you need to always have this tiny object on you at all times. I think it just makes sense that you'll just be able to say, I just am the star map, which I think is more fun flavor-wise. But again, DMs may want to do rules as written. You might just have to do some shenanigans of here, hold this when you want to go through a keyhole. But while holding this map, or while you are on the map, you have access to the Guidance cantrip and the Guiding Bolt spell. Guidance obviously being an amazing cantrip to have, and Guiding Bolt just giving us another fun ranged attack option to use is really cool. So it's just nice to have these things around. I mean, and it's great because we're paired with a monk, we're not sacrificing too much here. We can punch, you know, as a bonus action up to 3 times with our Flurry of Blows once we get to a high enough level, but still cast a spell of our action if we want to, so we're not losing out too much on our opening turns. We are basically going to be gaining a setup turn with this level of Druid as well, which again, I'll explain in a minute. But basically, you can cast Guiding Bolt without expending a spell slot, and you can cast this a number of times equal to your Wisdom modifier, and you regain all expended uses of this when you finish a long rest, but then you can still just cast it with spell slots. So overall, you just get Guiding Bolt, which is fun. However, Starry Form is what we're here for. Now, I'm a sucker for anime-style power-ups, and I love the idea of our character arc developing into the fact that as we learn more about ourselves and get closer to who we are as a person of the astral plane, we start to become more powerful again, with our astral arms being one aspect of that, but also being straight up able to transform into, like, this starry form where we're glowing with constellations and stuff just feels so, so cool. So, Starry Form. As a bonus action, you can expend a use of your wild shape feature to take on a starry form rather than shape-shifting. While in your starry form, you retain your game statistics, but your body becomes luminous, your joints, or blobs, I guess, glimmer like stars, and glowing lines connect them as on a star chart. So again, this is where I get the flavor of your star chart is yourself. Like, again, you have these constellations rolling around inside your slimy form. Again, DM may rule otherwise, but whatever. This form sheds a bright light in a 10-foot radius and dim light for an additional 10 feet. The form lasts for 10 minutes and ends early if you dismiss it with no action required, have the incapacitated condition, or use the feature again. While you assume the starry form, you can choose which of the following constellations glimmer on your body. Your choice gives you certain benefits while in this form, so you basically get to choose 3 different transformations. The first is the Archer, which basically allows you to use a bonus action when you activate this form, as well as on subsequent turns while it lasts. You can basically make a ranged spell attack, hurling a luminous arrow at one creature within 60 feet of yourself. On a hit, the attack deals radiant damage equal to 1d8 plus your wisdom modifier. So basically, you get a bonus action ranged attack that's radiant. Honestly, in my opinion, this is fun, but it's not so strong, as you're most likely rather just going to want to go up and punch people, but if you need a ranged attack, you still have access to one, which I think is pretty cool, and again, the flavor of it is just so, so fun. But the other two, I would probably consider more. Chalice allows you to basically, whenever you cast a spell using a spell slot that restores HP to a creature, you or another creature within 30 feet regain hit points equal to 1d8 plus your wisdom modifier. So say you cast Cure Wounds, a healing word, you can also add an extra 1d8 of healing to either yourself, another creature you can see, or the same creature that you're already healing. So you basically just become this immensely powerful healer as well. So not only are we tanking, attacking, you know, we're DPS, we're a tank, but now we're also a very effective healer. We can do everything. When I said we were going to get a diverse moveset, I bloody meant it. Also, we can choose the Dragon Constellation, which allows us to, whenever we make an Intelligence or Wisdom check or a Constitution saving throw to maintain concentration, you treat any roll of 9 or lower on the d20 as a 10. So, all Intelligence and Wisdom checks and Concentration saves basically get the rogue ability of Reliable Talent. That's crazy, and it's probably going to be the one that you're going to use the most like if you need to do stuff outside of combat, but Chalice can be useful if you need to be a healer in a pinch, but I think Dragon is going to be mainly the one you use the most because it's not something that's going to take any additional actions from you. It is just a passive bonus that is really going to help you, and that maintaining concentration part is going to be extremely important when I start talking about the spells that we're going to be getting at this level, because there's 3 that I want to pick. The first is Enlarge Reduce. Oh my god, does this work really well. So, you can use the Reduce angle to make yourself even smaller, allowing you to fit basically anywhere. You can squeeze into anything now. I would say Reduce, plus, you know, the fact that you're small makes you tiny. I would say at that point you can squeeze into anything that is half an inch wide. I feel like you're halving your size. You can half how much you can squeeze into. You basically are now just, you're able to go anywhere. Like, you can be as small as you need to be, which is amazing. However, Enlarge, turning us into a medium creature, will actually give us a 1d4 bonus on all of our unarmed strikes. You heard me correct. As long as we are in the effect of Enlarge Reduce, we gain an additional 1d4 damage on all of our unarmed strikes. We can make 5. That's 5d4 extra damage, all of which could be force damage. That's insane. We're also going to gain advantage on strength checks and saving throws, and since we make those with wisdom, we get to make those with advantage using our best stat. Now again, the DM may say, oh, because you're using wisdom, it's not a strength check anymore, so you might not get advantage. Now come on, most DMs are not going to be that bloody pedantic, I really hope. So yeah, Enlarge is just insane. It just turns us into even more of a powerhouse. I absolutely love it. So we definitely want to be using Enlarge, I think, with this build as a kind of primary concentration option, which is why, since we want to maintain it, Dragon is going to be our best bet. But also, Moonbeam, literally summon the power of the astral plane, the moon, down on your opponents for basically passive radiant damage, as well as Hold Person, which again, I would just flavor us as wrapping ourselves around someone and holding them still, allowing all of our attacks to be critical hits. That is insane DPS, but it all makes sense within the roleplay of the character. And then I would just take Druid to level 4 for an extra ASI or feat, which is completely your choice depending on where you leveled this. If you got these levels as early as possible at level 6 and now you're total level 10, then you're definitely going to want to take that bump up to your wisdom. Otherwise, it's completely your choice. But yeah, that is the build. Obviously, we're effectively talking about 4 levels of Druid. I don't think you need to go any higher, because I don't think the later Druid levels really help us that much. Just getting access to those second level spells that allow us these powerful buffs, and obviously the Starry form as well, to just inform the roleplay a bit more and give you some more options and some more diversity in what you're able to do. That's pretty good. I would say at that point you could maybe just continue leveling Monk, or continue leveling Druid up to level 8, so you get the full benefits of Wild Shape, you get more spells, you just get more things you can do with your, you know, your spell casting side, you get more spell slots to be able to do your other stuff more. It's entirely up to you. I would say the optimal kind of final level scheme, if you go all the way to 20 somehow, is probably going to be a ratio of either 16 or 17 of Monk with 3 or 4 Druid. I would actually probably say it would be 17 Monk, 3 Druid if you know you're going to level 20. Otherwise, I would go for a 16-4 split. Otherwise, I would maybe just go for maybe like a 10-4, maybe your max level is 16. Really, just take the Druid levels if you want to. Otherwise, you don't really need to. You could just keep going Monk if you want to keep things simple and just gain those benefits. But I would say, like, level 12 of Monk is obviously going to be quite powerful for you, but I would say you really don't need to go any higher than 10 if you know your campaign's going to be a bit more limited. So maybe 10, like maybe if you're going to level 13, 14 is your final level, then Monk 10, Druid 4, probably your best bet. So really, up to you. I would say, like, if you know you're going to be in a longer running campaign, then, like, obviously, I think the maybe 17-3 split would work, or maybe the 12-8 split. You know, there's a lot of different ways to do it, but I think I've got the main goal of this video across, is just to show you how these features, how this playstyle, and how the roleplay all work together to create a character that is not only extremely powerful and diverse in a lot of aspects, but also just incredibly fun to roleplay. Like, I can't explain to you just how fun it is to be this character with no personality, no morals, just nothing but, like, just curiosity and wanting to learn more about the world after being dealt a bad hand in life, that just evolves into their own person whose desire to protect what is important to them gives them this power as they slowly learn more and more about their true origins, and when they finally have the realization of what they are, they become this astral self starry form, like, just God, basically. Well, not God, but you know what I mean. They just become this incredibly powerful alien creature. Like, because when you combine the arms of the Astral Self with the starry form, which you can do, it takes 2 turns of setup, but you can absolutely do it. Like, basically, you're going to have a setup turn where you probably can cast Enlarge on yourself as an action, activate your Astral Self arms as a bonus action, then on your next turn activate your starry form as a bonus action, but then you just get to go absolutely crazy. Like, the more you level up, the more setup you have to do, but once the setup is done, you just become this unstoppable powerhouse that just, is so fun to play. But again, you still have all of that fun roleplay stuff to inform you along the way. And who knows, if you really lean into the concept that the party around you informs what you are, then you might not even take these levels. You might actually do something completely different. I would still recommend starting with Monk, but maybe you'll be a different type of Monk. Maybe you'll be a different subclass. Maybe you'll take a different multiclass, maybe into Ranger instead. Okay, yeah, maybe don't do that. But you never know. Like, stuff, or maybe a wizard of some kind. Maybe you find a way to use that little bit of intelligence that you have to do magic in a different way. Maybe you become a blade singer or something. Like, I don't know, maybe you do eventually use a weapon, and maybe that is like some sort of weird thing you do. I don't know. You can just do so many fun things with this concept that really the world is your oyster, but this is how I would do it personally. A stolen child of the stars who was meant to think that they were a failed magical creation that eventually learns the truth of their life and, you know, becomes all the better for it and makes maybe the people around them better for it as well. And, you know, doesn't just, you know, do silly stuff like, you know, eat cheese all day or, you know, maybe take hard drugs, which totally almost happened at one point. You know. So I really hope you enjoyed this video. I really hope this gives you a fun character idea of what to play in a future campaign. So, and this video was very, very long. I can see that. I'm looking at, we're about to approach an hour, so I apologize, but I hope you just kind of slapped this on in the background and enjoyed, you know, talking about a fun D&D build. So yeah, that's going to do it from me. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all next time. Goodbye.